In 2020, a former financial journalist named Morgan Housel published a short book. It was not a book of investment strategies. It contained no formulas, no charts, no predictions about where markets would go. It had none of the things that most finance books consider essential. What it had was something rarer, an honest account of how human beings actually think about money, as opposed to how they are supposed to think about money. The Psychology of Money went on to sell millions of copies in dozens of languages. It became one of the most widely read finance books in recent memory, not because it told people what to invest in, but because it explained why people make the financial decisions they do, including the bad ones. This is a summary and exploration of the ideas in that book, not a reproduction of it. For that, read the original, which is worth every minute, but an engagement with the thinking, the framework, the argument that Housel builds, because the argument matters. In an era of financial complexity, of AI-driven trading, of cryptocurrency, of leveraged ETFs, and option strategies that require advanced mathematics to understand, the most important financial lessons turn out to be distressingly simple. Not easy, simple. The difference between simple and easy is the entire subject of this book. Let us begin. Lesson 1. No one's crazy. Every financial decision you have ever made, and every financial decision every other person has ever made sense to the person making it at the time. This sounds obvious. It is not. When we see someone spend irresponsibly, we call them foolish. When we see someone hoard cash during a market boom, we call them irrational. When we see a retiree put their savings in cash at the bank rather than investing it, we shake our heads. But every one of those people is acting on a set of experiences, a set of learned associations, a set of emotional responses built over a lifetime of specific events that you have not shared. The person who grew up watching their parents lose everything in a market crash will never have the same relationship to investment risk as the person who grew up watching their parents' index fund double over a decade. Their experiences are different. Their mental models of what risk feels like are different. Their financial decisions will be different, and both of them are right from within their own experience. This is the foundational insight of the entire book. Before you can understand your own financial behavior or anyone else's, you have to accept that financial decisions are not primarily logical. They are primarily emotional, and the emotions are shaped by a history that is personal and specific. You were not there when the person made their decision. You do not know what they know. You do not feel what they feel. This is not an excuse for bad financial decisions. It is an explanation. And understanding the explanation is the first step toward making better decisions yourself. Lesson 2. Luck and risk. Bill Gates is one of the wealthiest people who has ever lived. He co-founded Microsoft. He saw the future of personal computing before almost anyone else, and he had the talent, the drive, and the intelligence to build one of the most valuable companies in history. He also went to Lakeside School. In 1968, Lakeside School in Seattle was one of very few high schools in the entire United States that had a computer terminal. Most universities did not have one. Most technology companies did not have one. But Lakeside had one. And a 13-year-old Bill Gates had unlimited access to it. Gates has said himself that without Lakeside, Microsoft would not exist. If he had been born in a different city, to a different family, or attended a different school, a school without that terminal, which represented nearly every school in the country, the history of computing might have been entirely different. His talent was real. His work was real. His vision was real. But so was his luck. The honest accounting of wealth and success must include both. The person who succeeds through talent and effort also succeeded through timing, geography, relationships, and circumstances they did not choose. The person who failed despite genuine talent and effort also failed through timing, circumstances, and bad luck they did not deserve. Why does this matter for your financial decisions? Because it means risk and failure are not always the result of bad choices, and success and wealth are not always the result of good ones. The world is not a perfectly fair ledger where outcomes precisely track inputs. This should make us more humble when we succeed and more compassionate when we, or others, fail. It should make us design financial plans that include margin for error, because luck can turn against even the best design strategies. And it should make us deeply skeptical of any narrative, including our own, that attributes success entirely to skill and failure entirely to mistakes. Lesson 3. Never enough. In 2008, a remarkable thing happened at a hedge fund called Galleon Group. Its founder, Raj Rajaratnam, was already extraordinarily wealthy. By any reasonable measure, he had more money than he could spend in several lifetimes. His net worth was estimated at over $1 billion. He committed securities fraud anyway. He built a network of insider trading informants across major corporations. He extracted illegal tips about earnings reports, merger negotiations, and clinical trial results. He used this information to make trades that cost his sources their careers and freedom. When he was caught, the question everyone asked was the same. Why? Why would someone with $1 billion risk everything for more? Rajat Gupta, a former director of Goldman Sachs and one of the most prestigious figures in American finance, was implicated in the same scandal. He had reached the pinnacle of corporate America through decades of work. He had more money and more status than almost anyone. He still passed on insider information. Why? Housel's answer is that the failure to know when you have enough is one of the most dangerous psychological conditions in financial life. The goalposts move. $1 million becomes 10 million. 10 million becomes 100 million. The number is always just out of reach, always just enough beyond the current position to justify one more risk. This psychological trap is not limited to billionaires. It operates at every income level. The person earning $50,000 who says they will feel secure at $100,000. The person earning $100,000 who says $200,000 will be enough. The person earning $200,000 who has discovered that they still feel exactly as anxious as they did when they earned $50,000. Housel's lesson is stark. The most important financial skill is not finding the highest return. It is knowing what enough looks like for you and stopping when you get there. Because the alternative, the relentless upward revision of what constitutes enough, destroys more wealth than any market crash. It makes people take risks they do not need to take, with money they cannot afford to lose, in pursuit of a feeling that never arrives. Lesson 4. The force of compounding. Warren Buffett's net worth at age 30 was approximately $1 million. At age 60, it was approximately $3.8 billion. At age 93, at the time of the most recent assessments, it was over $100 billion. The striking thing about this is not the final number. The striking thing is when the money arrived. Buffett has been a brilliant investor since childhood, but the vast majority of his wealth, over 90% of his total net worth, was accumulated after his 60th birthday. This is not because he became a better investor in his 60s. It is because compounding requires time, and the acceleration of compounding at the end of a long period is almost impossible to intuitively grasp. Here is the arithmetic. If you invest $100 at 10% annual return, after 10 years, you have approximately $259. After 20 years, $673. After 30 years, $1,745. After 40 years, $4,526. After 50 years, $11,739. The last 10 years of that 50-year journey produced more money than the first 40. This is not a metaphor. It is the literal mathematics of exponential growth. The later periods, when the base is large, produce more absolute growth than the earlier periods, when the base was small. The implication for financial planning is profound. The single most powerful thing you can do to build wealth is not to find higher returns. It is to start earlier and to not interrupt the compounding. Every year, you delay starting compounds against you. Every time you withdraw money from a long-term investment for a short-term want, you do not just lose the amount you withdrew. You lose the future compounding of that amount, which can be many times larger. Housel makes a point that most finance books overlook. Buffett's extraordinary wealth is not primarily the result of extraordinary investment skill, though he has that. It is the result of extraordinary investment skill sustained over an extraordinary length of time, starting at age 10, still investing at age 90. That is the real secret, and it is available in principle to anyone who is willing to wait long enough. Lesson 5. Getting wealthy versus staying wealthy. Getting wealthy and staying wealthy are different skills. They require not just different approaches, they require different mindsets, and in some ways, opposite temperaments. Getting wealthy requires optimism. It requires the willingness to take risks, to back yourself, to bet on positive outcomes, to act when others are hesitant. The person who builds significant wealth from a modest starting point, through a business, through investment, through a career, is almost always someone with an optimistic relationship to risk. Staying wealthy requires something much closer to pessimism, or at least humility. The recognition that what worked before will not always work. That luck played a role in the success, and luck can turn. That the skills that built the wealth, the risk appetite, the confidence, the willingness to concentrate, can also destroy it if not moderated. The financial histories of the wealthy are full of people who are brilliant at the first skill and catastrophically bad at the second. Jesse Livermore was perhaps the greatest stock market trader of the early 20th century. He made a fortune shorting the 1929 crash. He had a gift for reading markets that few people before or since have matched. He went bankrupt 4 times. Each time, he made back his fortune. Each time, the very skills that built it, the aggressive leverage, the concentrated bets, the willingness to risk everything on a single trade, destroyed it again. He died nearly penniless. The lesson is not to stop taking risks. The lesson is to recognize that the preservation of wealth requires a mental switch that does not come naturally to people who built it through risk-taking. It requires building what Housel calls margin for error, a financial cushion, a range of acceptable outcomes, and acceptance that you can be wrong without being ruined. The richest person is not the one who earns the most. It is the one who earns well enough and keeps enough of it long enough. Lesson 6. The seduction of pessimism. There is a bias in financial media and in educated conversation that tilts heavily toward pessimism. The pessimist sounds smart. The pessimist sounds serious. The pessimist sounds like they have thought harder about risk and complexity than the naive optimist who still believes things will be fine. Housel observes something important about this bias. Pessimism about specific, near-term outcomes is often justified. Individual companies fail, markets crash, recessions happen, careers derail. Any of these things can be predicted with some reasonable probability in any given period. But pessimism about the long-term trajectory of human organization, innovation, and problem-solving has almost always been wrong. The history of the last 200 years is a history of the pessimists being wrong. Not always, not without pain and suffering along the way, but directionally, on the broadest level, the bet on human ingenuity, adaptation, and progress has paid off. In 1900, the average American lifespan was 47 years. Today, it is 78. Infant mortality has fallen by approximately 98%. The number of people living in absolute poverty has fallen from over 80% of the global population in 1820 to under 10% today. Markets have reflected this improvement. The US stock market, despite 33 separate bear markets over the past century, despite 2 world wars, despite the Great Depression, despite recessions and pandemics and political crises of every description, has delivered roughly 10% average annual returns over the past 100 years. Not every year, not smoothly, with enormous volatility and genuine periods of terror, but over time, consistently in the direction of more. The pessimist who sat out the market in 1930 or 1940 or 1970 or 2009 was right in the short term. The world looked terrible. The risk seemed overwhelming. But the person who stayed invested through all of it, who accepted the volatility as the price of the return, who held on when the pessimist sounded most convincing, that person ended up with the wealth. Pessimism about next year is often wise. Pessimism about the next 50 years has historically been one of the most expensive positions you can hold. Lesson 7. Saving matters more than returns. There is a financial truth that almost no one teaches, and that runs against almost everything the investment industry wants you to believe. Your savings rate matters more than your investment returns. The investment industry makes money from the management of assets. It has a powerful incentive to convince you that the key variable in your financial future is where you invest your money. Which fund, which asset class, which strategy, which genius manager can beat the market by an extra 2%. But the mathematics of wealth accumulation tells a different story. A person who saves 15% of their income consistently over 30 years will build more wealth than a person who saves 5% of their income but finds investment strategies that deliver returns 3% higher per year. This is not immediately intuitive. We are accustomed to thinking of investment returns as the key lever. But the size of the base matters more than the rate of return on the base, especially in the early and middle years of wealth accumulation. A high savings rate also gives you something that no investment return can provide: flexibility. A person with significant savings can survive a job loss, a health crisis, a divorce, an economic downturn without being forced to liquidate investments at the worst possible time. They can make career decisions based on what they actually want to do, rather than what they need to earn. They can take advantage of opportunities when they arise. Housel observes that wealth is not about income. Plenty of high-income people have no savings and no financial security. Wealth is about the gap between what you earn and what you spend. That gap, invested consistently over time, is the engine of financial independence. The most important financial question is not where to invest. It is how to spend less than you earn. Everything else follows from that. Lesson 8. Freedom is the highest dividend in a survey of what people say they want most from money. The answer that comes up most often is not houses, not cars, not travel, not luxury. It is control. The ability to wake up in the morning and decide how to spend the day. The ability to choose your own hours, your own projects, your own pace. The ability to say no to things that drain you and yes to things that energize you. Housel identifies this as the highest form of wealth, not the possession of expensive objects, not the display of status, not the accumulation of a number on a screen, but the freedom to use your time according to your own judgment. He calls this the most overlooked driver of happiness. Research on what actually makes people happy. Extensive, long-running research from multiple independent academic groups consistently finds that people who report the highest well-being are people with the greatest control over their daily schedule. Not necessarily the wealthiest people, not the most successful by conventional measures, but the ones who can structure their time the way they want. The financial implication is significant. If control of your time is the goal, and the evidence suggests it should be, then the right question about any financial decision is not, will this make me wealthier, but will this give me more or less control over my time? A job that pays more but demands 60 hours a week may make you nominally wealthier and genuinely less free. A business that earns less than a corporate salary but allows you to set your own schedule may make you less wealthy by conventional measures and genuinely more happy. The pursuit of money as an end in itself, without asking what the money is for, without defining the specific freedom it is meant to purchase, is one of the most common and least examined errors in financial planning. Money is a tool. Tools are valuable only in relation to the outcome they are designed to produce. Define the outcome first. Lesson 9. Wealth is what you don't see. Here is a question. When you drive past an expensive car, what do you think about the person driving it? Most people report some version of admiration, respect, or the quiet assumption that the person driving the car is successful, wealthy, intelligent, worth knowing. The car signals achievement. It signals membership in a category of people who have made it. Housel points out the irony. The car is evidence of what the person spent, not what they have. A person with $2 million in savings who drives an ordinary car is invisible. Their wealth is, by definition, invisible. It is not displayed. A person with a $100,000 car and no savings has purchased the appearance of wealth at the expense of the actual thing. This is not a minor distinction. It is the central distinction. Real wealth, the kind that provides security, flexibility, opportunity, and freedom, is inherently invisible. It is the investments you have made, the savings in accounts no one can see, the options you have preserved, the decisions you have not made yet and can still make because you have not spent the money. Displayed wealth, the kind that triggers admiration at traffic lights, is the opposite. It is the conversion of financial resources into visible consumption. It is, definitionally, the destruction of the invisible wealth that could have existed. Neither choice is wrong in every context. Spending money on things that give you genuine joy is a perfectly valid use of resources, but the equation matters. The person who genuinely has money does not typically need to signal that they have money. The most financially secure people Housel has observed in a long career writing about finance tend to live below their means in conspicuous ways. They drive ordinary cars. They live in modest houses relative to their income. They do not care much what you think of their financial status, because their financial status is doing the actual work of providing security and freedom, rather than being spent on the appearance of those things. Lesson 10. Room for error. The last great lesson of this book, and in many ways the one that ties all the others together, is the concept of margin of safety. Every financial plan assumes something about the future. It assumes you will remain employed, that markets will deliver certain returns, that your income will grow at a certain rate, that your expenses will remain manageable, that your health will hold, that interest rates will stay within a certain range, that the political environment will remain broadly stable. These assumptions are almost always wrong, not dramatically wrong most of the time, but wrong in small ways, frequently and occasionally wrong in large ways that change everything. The financial plans that survive, the wealth that actually persists through careers, through market cycles, through the unpredictable events that constitute an actual human life, are the ones designed with room for these errors. Room for error means keeping more cash than the mathematically optimal model suggests. It means not leveraging your investment portfolio to the maximum the bank will allow, even when the expected return justifies it. It means maintaining insurance even when the expected cost exceeds the expected payout. It means keeping your spending well below your income even when conventional wisdom says you can afford more. This conservatism has a cost. The person who keeps too much cash earns less on that cash than they would in equities. The person who stays underleveraged forgoes returns they could have captured. The person who insures against low probability events pays premiums that, in most years, buy nothing visible. But the cost is not waste. It is the price of surviving the scenario where everything goes wrong at once. And in a long enough financial life, that scenario arrives. Perhaps not as badly as the worst case, but badly enough. The margin of safety is what keeps you in the game when it does. Conclusion. The simple, difficult truth. Morgan Housel ends his book with a thought that is worth sitting with. Doing well with money is not about what you know. It is not about your IQ, your education, your access to information, your network of smart friends. It is about how you behave. The knowledge of what to do is not, for most people, the limiting factor. People know they should save more. They know they should not panic sell during market downturns. They know they should start investing earlier. They know that time is their most powerful financial asset. They know all of this. What prevents them from acting on it is not ignorance. It is emotion, fear, impatience, envy, the need for social status, the discomfort of delayed gratification, the seductiveness of spending money in ways that feel good right now. Managing these emotions in the specific context of financial decisions is the only financial skill that actually matters in the long run. not because the other skills are unimportant, but because without behavioral discipline, every other skill is undermined. The smartest investment strategy executed with emotional inconsistency will underperform a modest strategy executed with calm, patient consistency. You do not need to be a genius. You do not need to pick the right stocks. You do not need to time the market. You do not need to understand derivatives or option strategies or the technical analysis of charts. You need to spend less than you earn. You need to invest the difference consistently over a long period. You need to avoid the catastrophic mistakes, the over-leverage, the concentrated bets, the panic selling, the lifestyle inflation that consumes every raise. You need to stay in the game long enough for compounding to work on your behalf. That is the entire strategy. It is simple. It is not easy. Most people will find it genuinely difficult to execute because human emotions in the face of financial pressure are not easily commanded. But the reward for executing it, not perfectly, not optimally, just consistently enough, is genuine financial freedom. Not the freedom of expensive things, the freedom of time, the freedom of choice, the freedom to structure your life the way you want it. That, in the end, is what money is for. And that is what the psychology of money is about.